All right. Whoa. Holy moly. Jump scared by a notification.
Okay, good.
All right.
My internet just died for a bit there, so that was well timed that it was right at the start.
Shout outs to Windows 11 for being obnoxious. All right. It is episode 4 of Beyond the Skybox, the show where we go beyond the usual jib jabbing about what we're up to, where we talk about a specific singular topic and dive, except not dive because that's our other show.
That's my job.
Yeah. I'm Lucas White, managing editor of Skybox, skyboxcritics.com, where I'm attempting to host a show for the first time since I worked for Prima Games. I am here with my co-host. We're doing a two-man show tonight. Feel free to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Kris. I'm a writer for Skybox and mostly the executive producer of the Skydive podcast, which you should totally check out.
Absolutely. We'll probably plug it tonight because it is relevant.
Definitely.
So the title of the show currently is Fixing Gacha Games question mark. I don't know if that'll stick, but that's what we're going with for now. Uh, the topic I picked, I feel like, is fitting for a two-man like this because I think Kris has very strong feelings about this genre and has shared them many times before on our content. So it just seems like a good fit for the two of us. And I don't think Brian or Will really play gotcha games.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I would be shocked personally.
Yeah, Brian can chime in on one thing, which is not a gacha game, but one of the games which will come up, I'm sure, about where these games get repurposed into something actually, dare I say, real.
Yeah.
So
So we should start just by kind of sharing where we're at with gotcha. I think gotcha game is being a absurdly powerful genre of RPGs that are usually on mobile games. Usually are made fun of when we talk about paying for JPEGs because you are typically ponying up for some kind of premium currency, trading it for characters. Usually, those characters are very powerful and also limited and hard to get. So they want you to just keep throwing your dollars out until you get the character you want, and then do it again in 2 months when the next banner rolls over.
2 months, that's generous.
That is probably generous. Yeah, I haven't played one of these in a while, so. Usually the thing is like, oh, you can get through just fine playing for free. Like you can play the story. And these games usually sometimes like have pretty interesting stories or increasingly high production values over the years and things like that. But it's always like there's always some catch. It's either like they throw the limited story in front of you with like flashing lights, or they hit you with like progression walls where your guys just they could be strong enough, but you're gonna hit a wall if you're not really like min maxing and grinding. But if you get the five
Yeah,
stars, they're gonna have like type synergy, or they're gonna be better in raw stats, so on and so forth. Um, so personally, like I kind of have this like not quite ambivalence to them, but like I have messed around with them over the years, kind of casually. Like I played Fate Grand Order. That was kind of like the tip of the spear for a lot of this stuff, way back in the day. Um, I've
still ongoing though, I think, right?
oh, I believe
Would
so.
be.
Yeah, going strong too. Usually, if something comes out and it's like it's got Final Fantasy on it or some other brand, I'm like, yeah, I'll check this out. Why not? Um, Back when I had like my office day job, I got heavy into Dragalia Lost. Rest in peace. I played that
Rip.
game every day for like 2 years straight, I think, until it started kind of going downhill, and it eventually got shut down, which is another thing we'll kind of be talking about. Um, but I usually don't spend money. I spent a little bit of money on Dragalia, but it was like kind of they would do this thing where it was like, if you just give us like a little bit of money, this like lump sum essentially, you can pick a character from this pool. It was like, oh, I've been playing this game for free every day. Um, I'll do this and pick a character I liked and feel like I helped. That's kind of the line we hear from a lot of
That's
people.
probably the way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do an ethical, air quotes, ethical gacha, that's probably the way to do it, where you just buy what you want rather than buy for the chance. Because
Exactly.
that way is lined, that's the path to hell.
Yeah, yeah. Nowadays, not so much. Just getting into the industry full time and losing that, and freelancing probably more than full time. Just don't have the time to get into a gacha game anymore. It just is what it is. I've downloaded
Yeah.
and deleted and not started more than anything else. But kind of like I see them as real games, quote unquote, in my mind, despite their problems. Though I do acknowledge their problems, but I don't. I stop short of like writing off entirely. Sometimes, mostly. There's another thing I do want to kind of say mean things about, but I'll save that for a little bit later because Kris, it is your turn. Do you have a history with these things?
Sure.
Did you have like a moment where it was like, oh, this is bad actually, or did you kind of see it the whole time?
Um, so there hasn't ever been a particular gacha which like really got its hooks in me. I dabbled in a fair few, mostly just out of curiosity in the early days, and I pretty much fell off all of them at some point or another before getting too invested, and pretty much never spent money on any of them, I don't think. Um, there's a handful of reasons for that, and that's kind of why I attribute them to just being bad games, amongst other things. But let's see. Just as examples, probably the one I gelled with the most was probably Grand Blue. Like,
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
that was that's generally well regarded. It has, decent writing, cool characters, really nice art, and yeah, systematically it's fine. It's okay. And this one will come up a lot later because even Cygames has recognized, yes, this has legs. We can make it not a gacha game though.
Mm-hmm.
And there's multiple games in the Grand Blue setting now as a result, which are much better in my eyes. Um, but that's probably the one that stood out the most. But I did dabble in a whole bunch, very rarely sticking with any, mostly because there was a part where where I kind of went on this personal project of, can mobile gaming be redeemed? And my answer is no, the rot is too deep.
Yeah.
And gacha is, by and large, the cause of that. But it also, just in general, it's just the aggressive, egregious, excuse me, monetization has it just gets in the way of them being actual games, which is why I don't call them real games. So much of the experience has to be compromised,
Mm-hmm.
both in order to be on a mobile platform. So lack of controller support, lack of buttons, lack of available interactivity because you're very limited in what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you are something that doesn't have to have those restraints, like a turn-based game, for example, it still does. They're still smaller, shallower, lesser in scope. The characters can do less. There's less, or because they want to pony them out into smaller instances of multiple characters so that they can be sold to you. And that has negatively affected the vast majority of these games in my eyes. And even more recent ones, like I did dabble briefly in Honkai Star Rail most recently on the recommendations of one Cam Hawkins. Shout outs to Cam.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and my assessment of that is that game is kind of cool. God, I wish it wasn't a gacha because then it might actually be worth a damn. because everything that is cool about it is hampered by the fact that the characters have to be limited in what they can do. You have to have more characters. You have to be aggressively pushing the fact that, hey, we can sell you this shit at all times. It is always a product before it is art.
Mhm.
And so the actual art and music and voice acting and all that gets lost in the weeds as a result. It's like not good. So uh, that's a bit of a meandering way in saying, yeah, I've dabbled in some gacha and they
Mhm.
haven't really got. I don't think I've ever committed nearly as much as you did to Dragalia or anything like that, but I've seen a fair few and mostly just these days I just avoid them because I think the gacha just does not add to the game and in fact only detracts. All these good games, supposedly good gacha games, would be better games if they weren't gacha. And so I just kind of write the whole thing off, and that's my main defense. Like people say, "Oh, Knights is good." I'm like, probably would be better if it wasn't a gacha. People say,
Yeah.
Star Rail is good. Probably better if it wasn't a gacha, and that's where I'm at. So
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned the side games, which also developed Dragalia, the one I was into.
yeah,
Between like side games and I guess Hoyoverse now, these are two companies that have at least seem to be attempting to like elevate the space and elevate the genre with like more substantive production values and gameplay and stuff.
hmm
But even that being said, you still run into like, a lot of these games still feel like they're just building up to get you to click the autoplay button and just watch the game play itself while you grind your resources or whatever. Um,
yeah, they are an engagement trap rather than actual meaningful gameplay experience.
yeah.
There's just not enough to them more often than not.
Mhm.
Most of the gameplay is in the setup, and then you just hit the button and let it go.
Yeah. Even in games like I don't know, Genshin, where it's got like platforming and uh, you know combo driven combat and stuff, it still seems like it's all kind of like held back just so that you can still click the "Do It For Me" button and the game
Yeah,
not struggle.
because every character has like two abilities and an ultimate, if that.
Mhm.
And it's like there's only so much it can do with that. And so it's just going to go use those on cooldown, swap to a different character, use those on cooldown, swap, etc. It can do a reasonable approximation of what a player would do because there's just not enough expression in their each character's kits and abilities in order to make it meaningful. So it can be done like that, which
Yeah.
is again why the setup is the real gameplay.
Mhm. And all that said, I feel like the the twist, so to speak, to this conversation, I guess, is that this model seems to have kind of, I don't know, used up its well, I guess.
It's
All but
plateaued.
yeah, all but squeezed all of the blood out of the stone. It seems to have a little bit left, and I'm not one to normally pick on Square Enix too much because everyone else does it plenty. But I think
But
there's
in
no
mobile, they fucking deserve it.
yeah
Let's be real.
there's no better evidence of the kind of traditional gotcha format maybe not being as lucrative as it once was than the pile of bodies Square Enix has left behind just in the past like 2 or so years. Um, you have games that have come out and shut down within a year, like a not even a calendar year. Uh, you have, and some of it is like, okay, maybe the Mana game wasn't gonna last. Maybe the Star Ocean game wasn't gonna last for obvious reasons. Um,
But they made one of those for each of these franchises every time just to
yeah,
milk what they can out of who is buying.
and they made
And there's so many.
so many Final Fantasy ones, and some of them kind of came and went very quickly, like Final Fantasy VII, the First Soldier, I believe it was called.
Yep.
some of them where I think we really see there is a problem here is some of them went on for upwards of 10 years, if not longer, that finally got shut down recently. There was a Dissidia game, which was like the one a lot of people really liked for various reasons.
I also like that one, and I can speak about that one personally
Yeah.
because that was fair, air quote fair, as far as they went.
Hmm.
Because they did something that I really like, and I just want to touch on this here because
Hmm.
so much of the appeal for a gacha is of characters, right?
Right.
Well, you didn't have to pay for the characters when you in that one you just got them by playing and doing the quests and doing the events,
Hmm. Hmm.
and what you would then get if you decided to pony up for money was rolls on weapons equipment and
Yeah.
such,
Hmm.
and those would have the limit breaks which would make certain characters more powerful, but you could still get the characters you liked just by playing, and I thought this is really good, they should do more of this.
Yeah, they even did this thing where they had like little the storylines kind of in their own menu, where it's like, I don't think they immediately let you replay them, but I think they had them like kind of cycle into it after like a few
I
months or
think
something.
so, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But it was like, oh, I could start because I remember I started it years into it, and I could go and just play all the storylines for like the Final Fantasy II characters and stuff, and just kind of collect everyone I missed that wasn't the
Hmm.
main story. I thought it was really cool. Um,
Yeah, and so much of that strength was on the character interactions, so it was
yeah.
important that you kind of had those.
Hmm.
Whereas in, these days, a Hoyoverse game will just have the characters be doing their stuff, and then when it comes to battles, it just cuts back to your party who may or may not be there at it, and it's like weird. They're just like, don't think about it.
Yeah.
But Dissidia was like, no, no, you have access to them. It's fine. It makes sense. They may not be at their full strength. They may not have the best gear, but that's fine. You
Hmm.
got what you were here for, and I respected that a hell of a lot more than pretty much all the other Square Enix attempts, of
For sure. For sure.
which there are many.
There are many, and there's one left, I think. The
Which one is still surviving?
Ever Crisis, which I can
Okay.
never tell how people feel about it, but apparently it endures.
Yeah. Because I know at one point, like I've dabbled in Record Keeper, rather, not Record Keeper. There was Mobius. There was Brave Exvius.
Brave
There
Exvius was
was
the
at
one that went
least,
on for like almost 15 years, I think, is finally getting shut down.
yeah, that was a long tail game.
Yeah.
There was at least one tactics game. And yeah, just
Yeah,
lots and
yeah.
lots and lots.
That was actually solid too. Like the story was actually
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
That's the problem with a lot of these games is like you they want you to invest money in them. They also want you to invest time to keep up because the stories roll out over time as well. They had a Kingdom Hearts
yes,
game that was like canon to the normal games, like everything else in Kingdom Hearts is canon. But I think it shut down before they could finish the story, or they finished the story and it immediately shut down. It's crazy. It's just like it can just go poof, and there goes
yeah,
everything. Um, so we have a lot of these games shutting down, and it seems like there's kind of two different things happening to me, just kind of based on I think more casual observation at this point. It seems like either gotcha games are now like trying to needle their way into like AAA games, at least in terms of like really going after production value, really targeting like you know games with like higher like more complex gameplay and like doing like stuff you can play with a controller like Genshin Impact, Infinity Nikki's another one. I think the new Persona one has controller support where it's like they're trying to like mimic console games in certain
yeah,
ways while still having their little needles in you at the same time.
yeah. But
Um,
still monetizing, still being relatively simplistic,
yeah.
and still being games that just would be better if they weren't gacha.
Yep. And they sure do like to sponsor the Game Awards.
Oh yeah,
This is kind of where you see a lot of these is they'll show up and you can't tell if it's a commercial or a reveal when one of these shows up on the screen. And if I remember right, it's been a battle between Genshin Impact and what is it, Wuthering Worlds or Wuthering something,
Wuthering Waves, I
Wuthering
think, is
Waves,
the
yeah,
one.
where
There's a few that I've seen in rotation, and I know some people who are gacha sickos, so
mhm.
yeah,
But they
I
seem to be
know people who are
competing.
in this, but yeah,
They seem to be competing over the best ongoing game award and like winning all or no, it's the player's choice. It's the player's choice one
yeah,
because they're like, if you vote for us, we'll give you free currency, and so every year one of those two games wins because people are just
they get such a massive swell in the player's choice, yeah,
yeah, because they're literally bribing people. That's the game awards for you.
yep,
So I think the big thing that I really wanted to hit um, is the other thing that seems to be happening, which is much more recent. It seems like some developers that have experimented with mobile games are kind of seeing the writing on the wall and experimenting with uh, reforming them in different ways. I have a few
yeah, getting
examples
out
here.
of that race,
Yeah,
kind of.
but still recognizing that like the work they did was valuable in some ways or good or interesting and trying not to just write it off and lose that stuff forever anymore. Um, and I think one of the big catalysts for that kind of discourse, at least, people talking about it, was the Near game.
Mhm.
That game got a lot of attention for having a very heavy, um, or maybe not heavy, but voluminous story, and people were like, "This is basically Near 3." Um, I didn't
And
verify
it's
that for
Yoko Taro
myself.
behind the wheel, so
Yeah,
apparently it's still hitting all the right notes.
yeah, and of course that game shuts down, and people are like, "But that was Near 3. What? Why would you do that?" We want, but obviously not enough people were playing it to support it or whatever. But the people who did play it were like, "Holy crap, this is the real deal," and now it's just gone. That sucks. Um, so whether or not that's part of the equation, we have multiple examples of companies being like, "Well, let's try to make these into something else."
Yeah,
And
I think a lot of that does boil down to Square Enix being Square Enix because they're, again, like we shit on them in this, and we rightly so because they are the biggest offenders in this space.
mhm,
And they are the ones who will kill their projects at a moment's notice because they're just constantly churning out live service games in the hopes that maybe one of them will earn us as much money as the game which bankrolled all of these, which is, of course, Final Fantasy XIV subscriptions.
right,
And they never do because Final Fantasy XIV is a good game and they're not. So,
there you
among
have
other
it.
things. But
Yeah, so the
um,
the kind
yeah,
of banner example of this that like is popular and people have been talking about it, enjoying it, is of course Octopath Traveler 0.
yes.
It is effectively a remake of Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, which rather than shut it down, Square Enix like sold it to a different company to like maintain it or something.
Hmm.
Um, then we're just like, well, that's off our hands, and here's this. And I remember like when that was announced, it it's kind of it is different than the usual Octopath games in that you have a just a character that you name and you kind of play as, and then instead of the first two games where you kind of like follow 8 characters on their path of storylines. It's like a whole bunch of
As they
characters.
travel.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of characters. They upped the party size in a battle, and notably, a lot of the characters are from Octopath Traveler 1 and I think 2 also, maybe just 1. I don't recall, but
I'd have to look.
yeah,
I haven't gotten around to Zero or the earlier game yet, the
me,
earlier version of it, rather.
yeah, me neither. Um, but it does have like a you can summon characters from the old game in it. So I sat there and looking at that, I was like, oh, that looks like a mobile game. Not necessarily in it being like cheap looking or anything, but just the structure. It's like, hey, we have you collecting cameo characters. Our battles are bigger. There's town building. That sure is like a lot of things you just see in these like branded, licensed mobile games. And
Hmm.
sure enough, later they were like, "This is a reimagining of our mobile game." And yeah,
Yeah, but even from that initial reveal trailer, I'm just like, oh, Octopath, that's cool. Hang on a second. I don't know about this. Something about this felt off. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was immediately like, something feels off here.
yeah,
And sure enough, I was like, oh, repurposed mobile game. Fair enough.
yeah. And while there were some like little things about it that was like, oh, this is more repurposed than maybe they let on because apparently it's got some like pretty highly compressed audio and some like fuzzy textures that it's like, oh yeah, okay, they're reusing assets from a mobile game that's a few years old now. Oh well.
Yeah. There was I remember looking at the reviews of it though and say some people saying similarly like you can tell that there are places here where there's kind of like big leveling walls and just kind of this is where the paywall would have really kicked in for you if it was still that,
Hmm.
and they haven't properly smoothed those out yet.
Yeah,
And yeah, so it's just like, yeah, this is definitely you can feel it, and which goes back to my thesis statement, as it were, of these games would be better if they weren't gacha,
yeah,
because
absolutely.
even when they're not gacha, the designs around them being gacha that remain compromise the experience somewhat.
I think the funniest example of that is the Apple Arcade. There's a lot of games on Apple
Mm-hmm.
Arcade that it's like, here's Sonic Dash Plus, or here's my favorite is there's a Castlevania game on there that was I don't even think it was released in North America before it got canceled elsewhere, but it came out on Apple Arcade and it's literally just the mobile gotcha game, but with all the microtransactions ripped out. Um,
Yeah,
you're paying for it, but it's like all the little pieces are still there, and it's like weird and grindy, and it's like, well, it's cool I don't have to pay for this, but it still feels like I'm like tinkering with
yeah.
things
They
that
took
would
the
be.
bare minimum effort to fix it, and then
Yeah,
it's still just got all the pitfalls of the game design that gacha makes because they want you to be ponying up.
yeah,
They want to sell your products. They don't want to give you a good experience.
yeah. And now they're trying to have their cake and eat it too a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
but that being said, Octopath Zero was also received really well. People really liked the
Yes.
story. People liked the town building and even the combat system. There were a lot of things about it that really stood out for people, and it seemed to be like, hey, this is a thing that maybe should continue happening, perhaps. Um, and there are a couple more examples that I think are interesting. One of them not so much good. The other one is like weird, and then there's a question mark. Um,
Hmm.
so first, we've got Atelier. Atelier is a
Okay.
series that has been around forever, has experimented with mobile games.
PS1 era, I think.
PS1, yep.
PS1. Yeah.
So there's been a couple of mobile Atelier games, but they've been more like blatantly mobile gamey. So Atelier Resleriana, Forgotten Alchemy, and the Liberator of Polar Night came out on like Steam, and I think it was, well, I don't think it was on consoles actually, but it was on PC and mobile. And it was like, this is a new Atelier game, and it's like 3D graphics, like looks AAA or double A, I guess. It looks like a brand new
Yeah. Looks
PS2.
like an Atelier game, which
Yeah,
is usually relatively double A.
yeah.
But
So this is a game that's kind of coming off the success of the Atelier Ryza trilogy, which really kind of put the series on the map. But that was not enough.
yeah.
This game shut down in less than a year. Um, and then something really weird happened. They released effectively a sequel,
Huh.
and it's called Atelier Resleriana, the Red Alchemist and the White Guardian. Now, I reviewed this and did not give it a good score, and it's a lot of the same stuff. It's like, oh, this feels really low budget. It's got these weird like grinding systems, these weird little tiny dungeons that it keeps asking you to do over and over again so you can like manage a shop. And it's all just like pressing buttons on a menu and like having it basically play all the like parts that would be gameplay and
Yeah.
other normal video games. And it's got like a little bit of charm because of the characters and stuff, but then you put it next to any other Atelier game and it's just like it looks janky, it looks more simple. Um, but it's not.
Yeah, 'cause they go in depth in some of their crafting systems and such. I can't imagine that being translated well to a mobile game.
Oh yeah,
So
like they kind of try, but still, it's all the like, oh, you want us to just do it for you? Sure, and then it's dialed back from the other games
hit the
that do it
optimize
better.
button. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The weirdest thing is like it's not a direct sequel, but it makes like callbacks and brings in characters from the previous game.
Hmm.
And it's like
Weird.
that game didn't finish and shut down in less than a year. Like I don't know who any of these people are. Sorry, like I can't. It keeps being like, whoa,
I
what's
have
that
no
person?
frame of
Yeah,
reference. Like
and then
it's different when you're playing like Atelier Tottery when Verona shows up in that one. And like, oh, I know you. It's like cool,
yeah,
but that's sort of like the follow up.
exactly.
But
And then you get characters from other Atelier games to like join your party and stuff in typical mobile game fashion. But it feels like, and this came out well before Octopath Zero. It might have been in the same year, but this is clearly like kind of. I feel like this was going to be like an expansion or something to the mobile game.
right.
Can't say for sure, of course, but it feels like it.
Yeah. A lot of what we're saying here about behind the scenes stuff is pure speculation
Pure
because either
speculation.
it's not out there, we haven't heard from it, we just don't know.
Yeah,
But you can read a lot into it and you can usually make some pretty educated guesses, especially about games, which we'll get to. So
yeah. So that's that. It's interesting. It feels like we realized we should do this, but maybe it's a little too late. But we're just gonna see how it goes anyway, kind of thing. I don't know. Or it's like a tax write-off or something. Who
something like
knows?
that.
Yeah,
We had the assets, out they go.
exactly. The next one I want to mention is a very strange case. This one is perhaps the saddest example. It's Tribe 9. It is a mobile game that was contributed to by the uh, Danganronpa guy.
Mhm.
I think he kind of just like made the characters and then kind of was like, "Here, give me my paycheck and do your thing, people."
Yeah, I'm gonna spend this on 100 line and booze.
Yeah, pretty much. This game made it all of 3 months.
Oof.
Yeah, real.
Yeah, I've heard the name. I didn't realize it didn't last that long. So, oof.
Yeah, I barely know what it is. It seemed like it was kind of like Danganronpa meets baseball. Um, and there's an anime apparently, but
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
yeah, for whatever reason, this they said they got 10 million downloads and then they shut down in 3 months. So this is like more indie esque territory, I would say. Kodaka has his own company called Tukyo Games. They recently put out 100 Line,
Hmm.
um, and there's
Which is an
all
actual game, and
uh,
it's wild and crazy and extremely long, and I haven't come close to finishing it yet.
it is absolutely wild. And if visual novels and wacky Danganronpa stuff is your thing, you should probably check it out. This company basically got the rights to Tribe 9 back from the company that made the game and then started a Dojin circle separate
Ah,
from Tukio Games, so like an entire different like organization, and was like, "Hey, we're gonna get a bunch of like artists and stuff together, give them the characters and our notes, and like, hey, you guys just finish the story for us in whatever format you see fit, and just
I
like leave it
respect
out there.
that.
Like, there's no money exchanging hands, nothing. Just like we want
It's
to,
open source. Do what you will.
yeah, very fascinating. Um, there's some interviews with people involved who were like, yeah, we were just kind of like really pissed off that this got shut down in 3 months and didn't want the legacy of like the stuff we did to be like it shut down in 3 months.
Yeah, quite understandable. Because you take a lot longer than 3 months to make the thing. You want it to, have more of a legacy than that. Because as much as, I shit on a lot of these games for being products first, there are very clearly talented creative people working on these who, you know, whether they want to or not, are having to compromise their projects, their creations in this way. And so it must really, really suck to be working on one of those and to make something that, you do your best with the hand you're given, only for it to be, shot at immediately like that. That's got to suck. So I'm genuinely glad that what's there got salvaged in some form.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually a quote on an interview with Automaton that I wanted to read out. If I can get it to load. Okay,
Sure.
so Akatsuki Games was the publisher of the mobile game, and a guy who left the company who was kind of managing the game. He said, here we go. In terms of my own legacy, wait, sorry, I may have misattributed the quote. 1 second.
Technical difficulties, please hold.
Oh, okay, it is Yamaguchi. He is in turn quoting Kodaka. So he says, in terms of my own legacy, having Tribe 9 remembered only as that game that shut down after 3 months would be incredibly frustrating. I want to give the whole ordeal a conclusion along the lines of, even after the shutdown, the creators themselves wrote the end of the story, published it, and became legends.
Dig it.
Yeah,
Dig it. Love it.
yeah, so
Real good energy behind that. I dig it.
absolutely. So it seems like, they're not making Tribe 9 the real deal version or whatever, but they are hiring, or they got some sickos to like draw some manga about it or whatever, but we'll see how that plays out. But
I wish them all the best in being legends.
for sure, for sure. Finally, there's a new one coming. Um, I don't know if you caught the Nintendo Direct last week.
I did not know.
So I can't remember if it was in the highlight reel or just a really quick trailer, but there's this game that came out a few years ago that was really interesting. Of course, it was Gacha, but it was made by people who, the writer, or one of the writers, excuse me, of Chrono Trigger and Xenogears,
Hmm.
with a theme song from the composer of Chrono Trigger and Xenogears called Another Eden, the Cat Beyond Time and Space.
I've heard about this one. In fact, did I play this one? I might have played this one very briefly. I think I did. Yeah, I think I did. Fell off it in much the same way, but I did for the same reason I have with most of the gacha. But it is one of those that I saw and went, oh yeah, there's production value here.
Yep.
There is a sense of something here. I just didn't stick with it because, yeah,
There's
interesting. So that's actually being saved, is it?
Yeah. It is so. We're doing Chrono Trigger again. There's a bipedal sword wielding frog character in it, so that's the kind of territory we're playing in.
Yeah, I definitely remember it banking a lot on the Chrono Trigger energy. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Lots of crossovers as well.
Mhm.
Um, Apparently, so not related to this necessarily because it endured, but it had a Persona 5 crossover because like everything else did.
Everything, every gacha has a Persona 5 crossover.
Apparently, there's like a meme that's like a kiss of death now because so many
I did
games.
see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was going around in the one of the media discords we're in. Just somebody just showing, here is this game, Persona 5 collaboration, dead shortly after, and there's like 6 examples. And I remember chiming in, going, "Ramble is still going strong. That had one of those first, but other than that, yeah, it really is like that.
That's
They
crazy.
just they just sell Persona 5 out to everything. It's nuts.
Yeah, I think even Dragalia Lost had Persona 5.
Touch of Death. There
There
we
you
go.
go, yeah. So,
Only Grand Blue was powerful enough.
mm, which is finally getting an official like North American release, I think, despite being in English for years and
However
years and
fucking
years.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This game also famously has a extremely aggressive anti-cheat. Um,
Mm,
the Steam version has mixed reviews, and if you look, it's like half of them are thumbs downing it because it's like this thing keeps asking for like System 32 access.
yeah.
And
Cool. Yeah, no, we're not giving you root access. Please stop trying.
yeah, so I think that really hurt its chances a lot too in terms of like having mainstream longevity, which is a bummer because I clicked over to the Steam page while I was kind of taking my notes here, and they're doing a Final Fantasy IX crossover. I just
Hmm.
kind of like, oh, that's neat.
I like
I like
Final
these.
Fantasy IX.
Yeah, I think the build up to that remake is taking interesting forms, but we'll see
Hmm.
how that goes. But yeah, so this new version of it is called Another Eden Begins, and it's coming out on Steam and it's coming out on Switch and Switch 2. It seems like, excuse me, it seems like it's more or less like a straight port. It's got like the same, looks like it's got the same like assets and like animations and stuff, presumably with like controller support and whatnot. Then they're like, it's got New Game Plus. And from some of the research I was doing, it seems that like Another Eden has like different scenarios with like multiple endings and stuff. So apparently that's
Okay.
their way of like addressing that in a normal singular piece of software, I guess.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems like just another game where it's like, we really think we have something here. But clearly the runway, which is the phrase I was looking for at the beginning of the show, the runway is out on this space, particularly like the ones where the gotcha games are kind of like 2D RPG looking, but like touchscreen controlled and everything. It's
Yeah.
like this is over. We're calling it. But let's turn this thing into something else.
Yeah. Let's save the investment that we've already put into actually making it because it was probably never going to make the bank that, they wanted it to, given that, every the problem with all of this is that a lot of these games that become gachas are because suits are looking at Genshin Impact or Grand Blue or Fate or any of the long-standing ones and going, wow, they're making like $10 billion per second. We want that.
Mm-hmm.
And then why isn't ours making $10 billion per second? Even if it's making $9 billion per second, they're like, no, not acceptable.
Right.
The
This
line
isn't
must go
enough.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you have to imagine part of it is just there's not enough people to support that many of these kinds of games.
Yeah. Because they're time investments. not only just the financial investment is one thing, and like it's a bad time in history to want financial investment from people right now because
Mm-hmm.
cost of living crisis, all the rest, big deal. It's a big deal. Inequality is higher than ever. Something capitalism bad. But then, yeah, the fact that they also want the time, we don't have that time. Like it comes back to again what Cliffy B said once. The most famous thing he ever said is like there is space for one, maybe two
Mm-hmm.
of any particular genre in like a multiplayer online space because the player base is going to attach to one and two and maybe a niche three if it's slightly different.
Yeah.
And that's been completely true every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get your the battle royales don't have space for anything except for PUBG and then Fortnite and then Apex, and that's about it. And most of those people, they will get rusted onto their particular game, and then a new battle royale will come out. They'll try it and go, not as good, not as fleshed out, not as many years of updates and content. Go back to the old one. You only have room for this many things. That's why you don't see new MMOs, you don't see new MOBAs, you don't see any of these things unless they're just asking for trouble. And it's a rare game that actually manages to punch into an existing space and stake out its own claim. Like Marvel Rivals is the only thing I can think of recently to really do that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's
the gacha market is no different.
very true. Yeah. There was another game that we wanted to talk about that is kind of in between everything. That is, we mentioned speculation before, but
Is it time to hold up the box?
it's time to hold up the box.
All right. For those who are watching the video of this game in question, for those who aren't, I'm holding up a Switch copy of Fire Emblem Engage. And that game, if you have ever played that game, you probably played it for a little bit and went, something about this feels really fucking off. Something about this feels very mobile design.
Mm-hmm.
Not just something about the way the story is presented, the way there's a lot of characters from past games that you summon and get callback. There's an in-game kind of gacha system that isn't tied to microtransactions. It's just, you roll a resource to get character related stuff. And I just played it for all of 5 minutes and I went, hang on a second. This game only exists because they were developing this and then Fire Emblem Heroes already existed and they didn't want to cannibalize their own sales and audience. So they pivoted. This has to be it.
Yeah. I remember really thinking about that when it came out because I was playing it and I kind of liked it for what it was in some ways.
Some people did, I did not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I noticed like it has so many of those telltale signs. It's like it's got this little baby hub world you interact with and do these like menial tasks and it's got like you said the gacha system where it's basically grinding out access to older characters. If I remember right, so you can like equip them for bonuses.
Yeah,
Basically.
every character has like a ring slot, and
Mm-hmm.
the main, like the big hero characters, like the main characters of the past games, they would actually be summoned.
Yeah.
But you had a system where you could summon basically from all these different games, and they would just give specific stat ups, and then you'd want lots of repeats and grind them out and upgrade them if you have enough, and higher tiers and all the usual
Yeah.
hallmarks. But yeah,
It's like blatant and in depth enough to really raise your eyebrows. Because sometimes you'll get a game where it's like, here's our cute little fake gacha, or it's like, oh, you find
Xenoblade 2
coins.
comes to
Yeah.
mind.
You throw the coins in and it spits things out, but it's never like, there's never enough to it, or it's like, oh, this is anything but just like a cute nod to real life gacha machines or whatever.
Yeah.
And Engage, though, it's like, okay, this has like a lot happening.
Yeah, and even just the way the story unfolds, the way
Mm-hmm.
the character abilities play out, just everything about the speed at which the story was told and the way it was framed and the characters were framed, so much about it felt like this just feels like a mobile game. It really does.
Hmm.
And like a better end mobile game, like a more modern one compared to some of the early days, but still just like not great. And that combined with, very colorful character designs and such among, and just, yeah, so much of it just felt wrong when I was playing it, and I ended up not liking it at all. But we Lucas looked up beforehand, before we started the show, because we were talking about this. We couldn't find any information that actually confirmed the theory, but like it's I would genuinely be shocked. I would put money down on saying no, that is absolutely what happened in development. This started life as, another mobile game, and then they went, okay, but Fire Emblem Heroes is already making a ton of bank. That's just going to cannibalize sales. Let's pivot. It has to be. I'd be shocked to learn otherwise.
And I think it almost adds kind of credence to that line of thinking when they just kind of unceremoniously dumped out that other mobile game fairly recently. It's like I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like a single player Among Us type thing with Fire Emblem characters. Very bizarre.
I've vaguely heard of this, but I know nothing about it, and everyone just said skip it. So
Yeah, I'm not even gonna bother looking it up. It's that inconsequential. But it almost had the vibe of like, oh, we have like a contract to fulfill or something, so we need to
yeah,
throw this out there and never talk about it again.
we made the thing, we're shipping the thing. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will accidentally give us $5.
So it could even be like they had like little pieces of something kind of incubating with Engage, and they're like, oh well, maybe we should just like fold this into the other mainline title we're making and see how that works out or something.
Yeah.
But it remains speculation probably forever because we never get inside baseball from Nintendo.
No, we really don't.
Um, so speaking of Runway, I think I'm out of examples here because this is a pretty new trend. If you can even call it a trend, because I think it's more like, I don't know, you got coincidental experimentation, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's almost desperation maneuver.
Mm.
Just we can see the writing on the wall. We are developing into a space where there's no money, no time, and all the people who are likely to play this are already currently playing your insert Hoyoverse game of choice, or are rusted onto some other gacha from however long. So yeah, it's just, well, we made the thing, we may as well turn it into something, or because it beats, just scrapping it and wasting years of development money and everything. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it is a trend though shows that gacha is struggling, and probably for the best, because it deserves the negative reputation for the reasons I've said and more. I haven't even gone into the depths of the exploitation yet, so
Yeah.
we all just kind of know and assume that at this point. So
Yeah, it's weird. It seems like even in some ways, Hoyoverse is struggling, despite putting out more new games. Still, there's also been layoffs and whatnot over there, and they're probably like trying to figure things out in real time as well.
it's because they're competing with themselves is the problem.
Yeah.
All their games are gacha games.
Hmm.
So they can't all be winners. They can't all have the same thing. You can't spend as much money in Genshin as you do in Zenless Zone Zero, or whatever else, Honkai. There's too many of them. And because they're all gacha games, they're just going to cannibalize off each other.
Yeah, it's the audience probably doesn't change much from Genshin to
Yeah.
Honkai.
So then you have the other approach then is the one that Cygames is doing, which is kind of taking their gacha and going, well, we've made billions off this gacha, and we've kind of got, a following. We kind of have something here. We've made a universe. We've got art. We've got a story. What if we actually made a real game out of this? if we made multiple? What if we made a really fucking sick fighting game?
Yeah, Cygames has really kind of like taken the goodwill that they have built up by making these games that people do show up for, and their art and their character design and all that stuff. And they're like, what if we do, like you said, real games? Let's make a fighting game with Arc System Works. Let's make a big action game with Platinum, but then like fire Platinum and make it ourselves, because Platinum
Still
they
did all
struggle
right
too.
though.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's getting a new Switch 2 port with new stuff. So that is a
yeah,
game
it's like an
that
expansion years after the fact. It's kind of
mm,
cool.
that's tied to Grand Blue, which also has manga and anime and all kinds of stuff. That's totally not just a gotcha game begging for money. So they they seem to also see uh, the value in exploring quote unquote normal video games.
Yeah, but also they continue to develop and support Grand Blue Fantasy itself. They don't need to do more in that. And anytime you put out one of these products and people go, that's kind of cool. Where's this from? Or what's this about? And they can point towards that and somebody can go, yeah, all right, I'll check it out. Somebody who may not otherwise have heard about it. It's, as opposed to just recycling its own market,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost reaching out to different communities and going, hey, but there's also this one over here. And yeah, like again, it's still a gacha game. I'm not gonna, pull punches in that front, but it wouldn't have got this far if it didn't have something there.
Yeah.
So, and they actually recognize that and leveraging that in ways that aren't just continuing to feel massively exploitative, which is it's almost like the lawful good approach compared to the lawful evil approach of Hoyoverse, which is just yeah, we'll take this money and then invest it in more gacha. All our games are gacha. And it's like, all right, whatever, guys.
I guess that's kind of the nugget of truth in all this, is that there are, despite the exploitation and the dopamine abuse and the gambling, there are things about these games that are, excuse me, appealing to people.
There are still creatives trying, in spite of their business, to actually make something cool.
Yeah.
Because creative people like to create. Usually, it's not their decision to make it what it is. It's not their decision to charge the prices that they do.
Hmm. We haven't even brought up Uma Musume yet.
Yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms. But also, a signal that there is still room for these games to come out and do well, but they need to be exceptional in some way or another. They
Yes.
need to latch on to some kind of cultural moment or fall in front of the right eyes to take off, and it can't just
It
be,
needs to breach containment.
yeah,
Yeah.
can't just be, oh, it's Final Fantasy with with gotcha again. That just
Hmm.
seems to be
For the
over.
12th time in the
Yeah,
last 3 years. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I don't know if there's like necessarily a appropriate like conclusion here, since we're kind of talking about something that's like just starting.
Yeah. We're in the middle of this. We don't have we can't analyze the entire thing. We can just comment on it as it is now and speculate on where it may go. But yeah, we don't have a conclusion.
No, um, but I guess maybe to round things off, Kris, if there was a game that got de-gotcha'd in an effective way, something that got the Octopath Zero treatment, maybe like more polished or something. Got another Eden Begins, if that ends up being good. I don't know. What would you pick?
Well, I already know what you're going to pick, so I'm just going to say we talked about it earlier. I think the Dissidia game had enough sauce in it that it should
Mm.
absolutely come back in some form. Because, frankly, Dissidia is a cool concept and it deserves a win, even if that was still more of a traditional more of a more traditional RPG than it was a fighting game. So yeah, I would say bring back Dissidia Opera Omnia and turn it into an actual game. Or just, as I mentioned earlier, just make Star Rail not shit, please.
There you go. That's a good one.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess I may as well just go ahead and say I would love to see Dragalia Lost come back in some form or another. That game already had like cool action gameplay, so being able to play that like with a controller um, would be neat. The game had a cool story, really good music, lots of neat characters. Yeah, I'd love to see side games and Nintendo do something with that, but that seems to have crashed and burned so significantly. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, there's a couple others I could think that would be neat to see. Most of them are just gone, and
Mm-hmm.
I know, for example, Mistwalker did a whole bunch of the Terra
Mm-hmm.
Battle games,
Mm-hmm.
so turning that into a package because they had, if only just so the Uematsu soundtracks get another lease on life because those slap.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, there's sign of that because they did that with Fantasian, so
Mm-hmm.
they could definitely do that again. And then one more I just have to bring up because this reaches way back even before Gacha was properly established. This was in the first Gold Rush. I don't even want to bring this back. I just want them to acknowledge it and then crucify it in front of an audience, strike it from the records, and then replace it with an actual thing. Make a real Breath of Fire 6, you
Oh my
fucks.
god! Holy shit! I was not expecting that to come up, but it makes so much sense. Wow. Yeah,
That
that
was,
would be
again, very, very early days of the
super
mobile
early.
trend.
That was
And
like,
so they actually put a number on it
yeah.
for some reason, even though it was bad. Even by that standards, it was bad. And so Capcom just washed their hands of it, and we've not seen anything Breath of Fire since,
That was
aside
like,
from the release of 4 on GOG, which was awesome,
that was
because
awesome.
4 is awesome.
That was like right after browser games kind of
Oh, yeah,
melted into phone games.
this is like right after, on the cusp of flip phone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like we're only just moving into smartphones, if that. So
Sheesh. I still remember how disappointed everyone was when
yeah,
they
I
came
carry
out.
that with me, and that's why I want Capcom to publicly crucify this thing and strike it from the records and replace it with something real. But
Yeah,
that's that's a pipe dream.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think now is a good point to call it a night then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, gotcha games have been the scourge of the video game industry for what 20, not quite 20 years, but close to it.
A while,
Yeah,
quite a while.
so it's interesting to see it kind of evolving in some ways out of necessity, and I would like to see this trend kind of turn into an actual trend, and maybe we'll see more of this at least from like Square Enix, where I think there's probably the most room for that to happen with all the, again, the trail of bodies that it has left behind. There was some cool stuff
Yeah,
in there. Be nice to see it
they are the
happen.
EA of the mobile space.
Truly,
With ugh.
truly. Well, were, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for sticking it out with me here on my first hosting job, and feel free to do all the plug-in and stuff.
well, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have been part of this. Again, it was just the two of us tonight because Brian and Will are occupied, so we decided we would do this topic. There will be others, and there will be more stuff coming. But as for me, my name is Kris Cornelis. You can find my writing at Skybox or at my personal website of versusthebacklog.com. That's vsthebacklog.com. You can also check me out mostly on one of our other podcasts, that being the Skydive podcast, where we do deep dive analysis and retrospectives of a bunch of games. We most recently published, what was the one we did last? Rondo of Blood was the one we published,
Mm-hmm.
and we have recorded a absolute, and I mean absolute monster of a podcast in 3 parts for Xenogears, which I am laboriously in the process of editing when my health allows, which isn't often. So We'll get to that soon, but keep an ear out for that.
Oh yeah.
You, Lucas, where's your stuff?
As for myself, I'm Lucas White, managing editor of Skybox. You can find me on Blue Sky at Hokuto Lucas. You can find my writing at skyboxcritics.com and shacknews.com. And maybe other places as well. We'll see. Catch me on Axe of the Blood God sometimes too. They invite me over to talk about Dragon Quest.
Hell yeah. You just
Until
reviewed that, didn't you?
yeah, Dragon Quest VII reimagined, and it is very reimagined, we'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll call it here. Thank you for listening. Check out the website skyboxcritics.com. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/skyboxcritics.com, where you can support us, help us keep the website going, help us run these podcasts, make them better. You know, get more freelancers, all that good stuff. Until next time, have a good night, everybody.
We're out. Peace.
Goodbye.